call the meeting of the International Falls Economic Development Authority to order at 1800. Don't really see anybody in the audience, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Your pleasure with the meeting minutes. Second, any discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. For the financial reports,
As treasurer, I recommend you approve them. They look great. Or they look, well, I should say, fairly present the financial position of the EDA. Not great. That's Trump language, right? They look great.
motion and a second to approve the financial reports. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And number 5, reconsider conditions of the easement approval for the Great Northern Transmission Line. Is that going to be you?
Yeah, Mr. President, I've been trying to reach Dennis Rodiker from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. We've exchanged emails and phone calls, and there was some email traffic that I received from the consulting company that's working with the Great Northern Transmission Line on the easements. And the EDA might recall that we had approved granting an easement for them to go across a corner of 2 of our properties in the county, subject to the Board of Water and Soil, I'm sorry, the Corps of Engineers and the state, and I think it was the Board of Water and Soil Resources, signing off on those easements because we have a conservation easement on that property. And they've indicated that they don't do that and won't do that for this particular type of an easement. So I've been trying to get a little bit more explanation, and I did get a voice message where he explained it, and it seems to make sense, but I still not have had a conversation with him. So I'm wondering if the EDA would be comfortable in just relinquishing that requirement, subject to satisfaction by the city attorney, and that it wouldn't be necessary to have them sign off on those easements, and so we can get it, rather than waiting another month again, to have some conversation with them about it.
Property isn't really worth anything anyway, so far as
I think it was for wetland mitigation purposes is why the city acquired them, or the EDA rather had acquired them, and so we have it. I don't know the total square footage, but it's a relatively minimal amount of property, and they needed to do some clearing and scrubbing, but it was a violation of the conservation easement that we had signed in order to have the wetland mitigation standards put in. That is, before we granted it to them, we wanted to make sure that we fulfilled our obligations of the previous lease agreement, conservation easement. And I've heard from the Board of Water and Soil Resources that they don't do that for this type of easement. They don't need to do that, and they won't sign it.
They don't need to, so are they indicating by that then there is no risk to us in losing those wetland credits?
They said something about a recalculation, and that's part of what I want to have a conversation with them about. But there apparently would be some financial contribution that would be made from the grid or to us. I don't know what the monetary amount is until we get the easement. I don't have a specific answer about what the dollar amount is or what the consequences would be to this easement, but I think that's what they have to go through a calculation to describe.
What's the outside loss we could have? You don't know that either. No. Because it may impact the whole, may not just be that limited area, I suppose, possible.
knowing what wetland credits are worth, you know, well, the easement, so far as what they're going to pay us for that, is going to be minimal. Based on folks I know down Birchdale Way and the amount that they got, they get that much for an easement.
And did it Kmart?
But my back on it would be is, are we going to lose more in wetland credit than we're going to gain? I don't.
That's the risk.
Because I don't know how much property there, that it's really, if it's, because I think it was just one corner of one.
There was 2 parcels and they were both corners of both of them. It wasn't a significant amount. One was a little bit larger than the other, but I don't remember. Well, they didn't bring the file, but it's not a lot.
Will the Bowser, or that group of people, would they, I think there's 3 entities we're dealing with here?
Corps of Engineers and then Bowser would be the ones that we would be concerned about the conservation easement with.
Well, I mean, if they would assure us that we aren't going to jeopardize our wetland credits, I guess that's the risk we have. That's all.
That's what I want to be sure of, is that we're not putting that at risk.
Because I think we spent a little money for that, didn't we?
It was way before my time. I don't know how much
Yeah,
money
it
was
may have
actually
been before
expended.
mine, too.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we move forward with the granting of the easement to the Great Northern transmission line, with or without the approval of the Board of Soil and Water Conservation.
Just
Yeah.
for clarification, if I may, is the Board of Water and Soil Resources and the Corps of Engineers, because that was a condition of our approval, was that we had them both sign off on the easement and so on.
Both organizations.
Can I make a friendly amendment, Mr. President? We don't need them to sign off, but we do need reassurance. I would add that. We need reassurance from the agencies involved that we aren't going to lose our wetland credits.
I don't know that they'll give that to you.
We haven't asked, have we?
Trying to get contact with them, I think, has been the challenge. I don't think that they see it as significant enough to return the call. I think it's such a de minimis amount of land, and let them come after us. I'd love to have them come after us. That they're going to try to take our credits away for granting a transmission line that's in the public interest. God.
They've got paperwork that they have to do on their side, and they're just saying that they don't sign off on easements or approve them. It's more of an administrative condition that we placed on it, that they don't grant as a matter of course, because there's different kinds of easements. They did bring up another easement in the county, the Hasbargen easement, and I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but...
Very familiar with it.
Yeah,
It's
so-
in the court system right now.
Is it? Okay. But they said ours is different than that, but I don't know the specifics. And,
Ours is different, meaning we won't end up in court then.
Ours is different in the fact that and I'm not granting you the easement, it's in Judge Leduc's hands right now, because they've cited Minnesota statutes that the transmission line didn't follow through with. And that's his argument, saying, hey, I don't, that's my property and here's why. And they have a significant amount of property that's the transmission.
They lose the use of the property.
And they use
We're not losing anything.
The only thing we might lose is the wetland credits, but you're assuring me that you are going to stand in the way, and therefore I should just vote for this. Is that right?
That's right. Exactly right. I will stand in the way.
With his hands on his hips, keep flying behind.
We'll take them to court.
No, I'm getting the overall impression that this question is a nonsensical, well, you're saying it's nonsensical to them. They don't really compute this at all. You know,
What I'm
in
saying is
that
they just don't
case,
say-
I tend to say I think I'll vote for it, but, you know.
yeah, they're saying that they just don't do that, they wouldn't do that. So we put a condition on there that we just want to reconsider, but I can't can't fully inform you about what the consequences of that decision are. I think it's just more bureaucratic and administrative than really consequential. Obviously, because there's a public purpose to the transmission line going across the state, there's been some, so that's what the issue is, and because it's been at least 3 months that we've kind of had this on the agenda, and I called the guy's cell phone last week, and he just hasn't called me back.
All right. What I would say is, can I try this friendly amendment? That we are doing this under the supposition that this is a mere administrative technicality. It would, put that wording in. So
That's implied.
well, no.
I mean, you could put it that it's
If you have to go to court, you'll be grateful for having that language in there. Because then you can point to it and say, this was our apprehension.
I think this gives us an opening and some flexibility in working with the city attorney to make sure that the EDA's interests are protected and that there wouldn't be any negative consequences, but also allow us to move forward with actually signing the documents if we have to, and then getting the financial remuneration that's coming back to us from them. But if I see, and I would consult with Steve, anything that would be have some negative ramifications to the EDA, I would of course bring those to your attention to reconsider it, because you didn't have the benefit of that information at the time that you made this decision. So I guess what I'm saying in short is that I'm going to try and do what you're asking for, is to have some reassurance from them that there isn't going to be any consequences and we're not going to lose wetland credits or anything of any significance. Forward with this, assuming the motion gets approved.
All right. You wore me down.
A motion, we're going to move forward. And then the city administrator will do his best to make sure that we're not going to lose credits.
Well, we got a second.
That's it.
And I withdrew my friendly amendments.
Our discussion? All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6.
All right. What happened is I didn't go, guys, and ladies, I didn't go because I got terribly sick. Couldn't go. So I didn't get to that investors meeting. But I did call Brian Hansen. He's the Apex director, and he attended. And he said that the current situation there, they've hired a new CFO. They've hired a CFO. I don't even think they had one before. And this CFO is sharp. His assessment of this fellow, and I'm not going to remember the name now, but I had written it down, was going to be capable of generating the funds they need to move forward. They're really having an investment problem, truly. I mean, this is so. Brian Hansen, I talked to him about, the aquaponic farm up here, and he said Apex is really thrilled about the prospect of us doing this up here. And so they wrote a letter of support for the city's initial conversations that we had with, that we were pursuing this developers agreement with Bruce Carmen and Mariner Farms. So I spoke to Mariner Farms, I spoke to Bruce, I asked him about the status of our project, and he said that that we are definitely in their plan, and I could not pin him down to a date. So I still think what I propose to do, he needs to come up here, and we need to revisit the developers agreement at minimum. But what I would like to do is still visit there and take an assessment for my own self. I mean, I got reassuring remarks from Brian Hansen, but again, this is secondhand. It does come from the director of Apex, which is that investor group of large companies out of Duluth. So I value his opinion. But I would like to go down and just have and so what I propose, to make that investor meeting, I would have had to make a special trip. So I'm probably going to be going to Duluth for an eye appointment for my mother shortly, and what I would do is go up to Silver Bay, so the cost to the city would be just the mileage from Duluth to Silver Bay and back, to make that trip and do an assessment too. Which is what I was going to do in the first place, but I got very sick. Well, you've already authorized funding for a bigger cost, but. Talking what? Silver Bay to Duluth?
I think it's, I don't know that you want somebody to go. Fine. Are you planning on looking at the facility they have in Silver Bay?
Yes, I want to look at what they're doing there. I mean, that tells you they're not operating? Well,
It's not operating.
That was my understanding, they haven't really got there yet.
One that they had with the University of Minnesota, that's not operating presently.
at all? And what's your source?
Folks over in Silver Bay.
Well, you know,
And how many years have we had this developers?
well, it's been less than recap or the foreign trade zone. So, have patience
Asking
here.
what,
2 years, 6 months.
is it?
2 years.
How long is the developer's agreement good for?
Well, it's good until he starts the process of wetland mitigation.
And I think that's always been my biggest hang-up on this project. Talking about this just like recap, in 10 years still be talking about this because we have no definite timelines if he doesn't start the process of asking for the wetland mitigation. So we have a piece of our property that is hung up as long as he wants it hung up, that we can't offer it to another investor if they want to come in.
Well,
And that's my concern.
Yeah, if we had another offer, I would say we cut line, right? Because,
Can we
but,
take another offer if that's still there?
well, have we had one to even, I mean, isn't this a moot point right now? I guess what I'm saying is, this project, if it did come to fruition, would diversify our economy, would help augment the college's position. It would, it isn't like Granite Realty, but it would add 5 people at about $60,000 a year. I think that was the original estimate. It's been a while since I looked at that. It's a positive thing. At this point, what we need to do is take an assessment and find out if this is just pie in the sky. What I'm hearing from Brian Hansen is that he thought that there was merit in that meeting he went to. Do we want to just simply reject it out of hand without a little more? I mean, we're not losing anything at this point. If we had a real use for that at this point in time, I would say by all means, we've been patient, right? But we're not losing anything at this point by putting in a little more effort to see what it might bring us. I mean, aquaponic farm would be great if we did it. And, the other thing is that he is looking, Bruce told me he was looking at a partnership with Superior Food Products in Wisconsin, and they were interested in aquaponic farming, particularly here, because the only real center they have for distribution of produce and groceries is Toronto. So Superior Foods is seeing that this western part of Ontario is underserved. So there's so they're looking at the market on both sides of the border here, and that our position as being Fort Frances is more central to Ontario than we are to Minnesota, right? So because they're a larger city, and they're for Ontario, they're a larger city than we are to Minnesota.
But they're central to Ontario.
Well, they're central to the population is along the border. It's not up on the lakes where people go fishing. It's along this border.
They're at the western end of Ontario, Fort Francis is. The Manitoba border is just
Oh, okay.
over here about 70 miles. You go 1,200 miles
I thought,
to the,
Toronto.
yeah.
well, in any case, my geography may not be perfect here, Mr. Mayor. But the argument was that it's a population center that they would find well-positioned. Maybe I had the word central to Ontario was not the best choice of words there. I got an F in geography. But going back to my original point.
If we can make
right?
it work, I don't
Yeah,
have a
I
problem
mean-
with that. As long as, you know,
It's,
there's nobody knocking down the door wanting that piece of property,
Right.
but if it does happen, my question is, what can we do? Can we get out of that and get it to somebody that's
Well-
looking for it now, or can we market it a different way, or
do
not?
we plan to market it in?
I mean,
I'm not here to represent Mariner Farms. I'm just giving you Brian Hansen's assessment. What the holdback has been lack of money, which it always is, right? Granted, Realty is looking for, or now they have their investors lined up, but that's always the case in economic development, is the money. So I'm not willing to condemn this because of that universal problem.
I don't think we even can. That's my concern. We can't. As I understand it, the way that the developer's agreement is, unless we renegotiate that developer's agreement, I kind of think that we're stuck. That's my biggest concern, is we're stuck. So if
Property's tied up.
If in a year we do get somebody, and I don't know who that somebody is, and I would love for him to knock down our door, but we can't do anything unless we renegotiate this developer's agreement.
Okay, good point, as usual.
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and I respect that. So what I propose we should do, and what we should do is, I've told Bruce that he has got to come up here and meet with us. And what we need to do is change the contract, so that, we have that escape clause in there, because he's had plenty of time, I grant you, but he hasn't had plenty of money, so. It isn't willful. It isn't like, I believe he isn't stringing us along, and I'm using Brian Hansen as a character reference here. But I think your point is well taken. When I go visit there, I'll bring that subject up. We'll see what we can do about modifying the agreement to ease your concerns about that, which in fact I would share. We certainly wouldn't want to be in a position where we lost something due to some prolonged legal battle, right?
We look to see if there is a termination clause in the contract or not, because I haven't looked at it recently. I just know that he has to start construction within 12 months of getting his wetland application approved, so. And if he doesn't submit his wetland application, or it's in process, it could be 3 years down the road, it could be 3 months.
So, anyway.
Well, I think Commissioner Jackson, you've outlined that, we've got a number of, I would call, efforts that are hanging out there and not producing. Kind of like cell phone towers. People get...
we okayed them. We okayed
Permits.
2 of them, they haven't done
Right.
anything, and there's another one that's already built with nothing on it.
get permits and we don't have any cell phone coverage. And so I guess I don't know what a reasonable time is for someone having a developer's agreement. I'm certainly willing to go somewhat longer. I don't hold out any hope, I guess. But I'm certainly willing to see us have some kind of reasonable timeline.
Well, you know, I guess I remain hopeful that International Falls will grow stronger economically, and that I'm very hopeful about Granite Digital. And I just, any hope at all that doesn't cause a cost to us in terms of lost opportunity, I'm willing to pursue at this point. You know what I mean? So
I know I'm slightly off point from conversation, but I think that's one of the things we have to really look at this, as this body, is we see someone dangle a carrot in front of us and we're like, oh my gosh, we could have that in our community. I think we jump the gun so fast to get any form of economic development, to get anybody in our community, and I think we really need to look at those contracts, make sure that it makes sense for the city first, before we say, yes, you should come into our community, and then start asking the questions afterwards, like, well, how do we get this zoned? How do we do a tax abatement? How do we, you know?
And that is very good, why we're going to go ahead with the recommendation from administration on what kind of parameters we need to set. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't be operating without parameters, because you're going to end up getting twisted in the wind in a minute with different demands, right? So, yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to do that too.
On that? Other business you want to bring up?
I have one, and it fits right in. I understand it, and this is outside. I haven't heard that as a official city business thing, but I'm under the understanding that Larry Keep has purchased property in a different spot, and probably will not be pursuing his venture in our product. Is it possible for us to get a letter or something that says that, so we don't have this other property hung up for a long period of time? Just to request a letter from him saying that he no longer wants or is seeking a developer's agreement for the multimodal property?
Where is he buying?
I met with him about 2 weeks ago, and he has purchased approximately 8 acres from Packaging Corporation of America on property that is borders on County Road 155 and the Rainier Spur that is owned by MD&W. And that corner of the rail spur and 155 has got a triangular piece in there that purchased, and they've reached agreement. I met with he and...
So he's not, that property's not far from where he was
Right
considered.
across the road, basically.
Yeah.
There's already a...
Did he get a better price?
I have no idea what the price is, but it's already got a rail spur serving it, and he has a 3-year plan of development for that, and that was both he and MD&W manager. I mean, what they were doing. So yes, he is no longer at this point interested in the multimodal site.
Would it be possible to just
Did we even have a developer's agreement?
Well, are
we never ever had
No, we never had one in place, but we were actively seeking
Why do we need a letter from him, though? We didn't have a legal agreement with him.
We don't have an agreement, so I don't know why we... Property's available still for anybody else that wants it.
fair enough.
There's no developer's agreement. so-
No string. He is in the
We don't have
process.
long-term-
He's already had the Gopher 1 out there and outlined.
He's already got equipment out there. His goal is to get the bulk plant up this year, and then probably next year or two to get the warehouse.
With tanks and
Yeah, that's the next thing.
all industrial.
Okay.
It's all industrial.
So there are, okay.
I just want to make sure that we're tied up long-term in the event we don't have people knocking down the door. We have to be prepared for that there is someone.
And I concur, we don't want to end up with something, a legal proceeding. So we'll need to look at that developer's agreement with Mariner Farms.
Any other business?
Thank you.